Okay, so you want to own a laundromat. You have driven past one 1,000 times. The windows fog from the inside. The light is on at midnight. Somebody sits there with a paperback and a plastic basket. And you think about the coin box. 24 machines, humming, taking money from strangers. No menu, no kitchen. No chef quitting on a Friday night. Nothing spoils. Nothing gets reheated. Nothing goes out of fashion. Clothes get dirty forever. That is the whole thesis. Recessions do not stop it. Fashion does not stop it. Nothing replaces it. The machines do not call in sick. They never steal from the register. They need no training, and they never ask for a raise. You could own that. You could collect on a Sunday and be home by noon. It runs itself. That is the pitch. That is also the problem, because a thing that runs itself was designed by somebody else, and that somebody decided in advance where the money would sit. Opening a laundromat costs between $200,000 and $500,000. In some markets, it reaches $1.2 million. That is before your first quarter drops. Here is where it gets interesting. Almost none of that money buys machines that make you money. Most of it buys the right to put water into a building you will not own. Let us open the books. Start with the sticker price. $200,000 to $500,000 to open a store. You can go lower. A small coin laundry with used equipment starts near $50,000. You can go much higher in a dense city. Now look at where that money actually lands. Equipment eats 50 to 70% of the total startup cost. One researched build model puts $300,000 into washers and dryers. Another $150,000 goes into the facility build-out. $40,000 goes into payment kiosks. $30,000 goes into water heating. Read that again. Water heating alone costs $30,000 before a single customer walks in. That one line tells you what this business really is. You are not buying a shop. You are buying a very small utility plant. The build-out is the part nobody photographs. Floor drains, gas lines, vent stacks, enforced flooring, upgraded electrical service. A laundromat cannot be installed. It has to be built into the bones of a room, which is why the money is front-loaded and almost none of it comes back. Consider what that build-out is really paying for. A water heater sized for a home costs a few $100s. A water heater sized for a laundromat costs $30,000. That is the distance between a household chore and an industrial process. Your permits treat you accordingly. You are inspected for plumbing, gas, ventilation, backflow, and fire. Every one of those inspections is scheduled by somebody else. Every delay is another month of rent on an empty room. Then the rent starts, and it starts before revenue does. Expect $1,500 to $5,000 a month. A prime spot near apartment blocks runs $2,000 to $6,000. A business license costs $50 to $400 a year. That license is the cheapest thing you will ever buy here. Most owners do not pay cash for any of it. They borrow, and the government helps them borrow. The Small Business Administration guarantees up to 85% of the loan. A down payment of $50,000 to $150,000 opens the door. Look closely at that arrangement. You put down $50,000. You sign for $500,000. The guarantee does not protect you. It protects the lender. It exists so a bank will say yes to somebody like you, and a bank that is already protected has very little reason to be flexible later. Hold on to that sentence. It kills a man at the end of this video. If you buy into a franchise, add $20,000 to $50,000 in fees. For that, you get a name on the window. And used equipment is not the shortcut it appears to be. A used machine costs less and drinks more. It uses more water per cycle and more gas per dry. You save once, at the purchase. You pay every day, at the meter. That trade is the first real decision of your ownership. You are not buying a store. You are buying permission to run water through a floor you do not own. And whoever owns that floor has already written the rules. There is a second obligation, and it arrives with the building itself. Older spaces carry older plumbing. Sewer capacity, grease interceptors, and backflow prevention become your problem at signing. The landlord's building quietly becomes your compliance cost. But start with the rule you did not choose. You did not pick your lease length. Your lender picked it. Equipment financing runs long, so lenders expect leases of at least 10 years. The common structure is 10 years base, with 2 5-year renewal options, 20 years of occupancy, arranged to protect a machine purchase. Sit with the order of that. The debt sets the lease. The lease sets your next 20 years. You commit to one room on day one, when you know the least you will ever know. Now read what kind of lease it is. Most of these are triple net. Under a triple net lease, you pay base rent plus property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. That structure moves property expense risk off the landlord and onto the tenant. The roof is not yours. The roof repair is. The parking lot is not yours. Resurfacing it lands on your statement. Then there are the clauses you skim past. Multi-tenant shopping centers commonly include a landlord relocation clause. It lets the landlord move you into a different unit in the same center. For a clothing store, that is an inconvenience. For you, it is termination with extra steps, because your plumbing, your build-out, and your permits do not move with you. And here is the trap. Most alteration clauses prohibit structural or mechanical work without landlord consent, but your entire business is structural and mechanical work. Every machine swap touches plumbing. Every dryer touches venting. So the person approving your repairs is the person collecting your rent. Some leases also restrict operating hours. A restriction on hours is fatal to a 24-hour model. Your quietest, cheapest, most profitable hours are the ones nobody wants to supervise. Then comes the document you never hear about. Your lender wants a landlord and lender agreement signed. It states that your installed, vented, plumbed machines remain personal property, not fixtures, not part of the building. That sentence protects the lender's right to take them back. It commonly gives the lender 60 days to pull the equipment or install a replacement tenant. Read the utility clause as carefully as the rent clause. You want your utilities separately metered, in writing. Where they are not, your usage gets bundled into shared charges. A laundromat is the heaviest utility user in almost any strip center. Bundled billing means you subsidize the tenants around you. The nail salon pays an average. You are not an average. 3 parties signed that room. 2 of them wrote protection for themselves. The lease is not your rent agreement. The lease is the asset, and it is in somebody else's name. So where does the money actually come from? Start at the obvious layer and work downward. A wash costs $3 to $8 per use. A standard top loader charges $3.50 to $5 a load. A large front loader commands $6 to $8 per cycle. Then the dryers. A dry cycle runs $1.50 to $3. Most customers need 30 to 45 minutes of it. Dryer income typically lands at 33 to 50% of washer income. Now the volume underneath. Machines average 2 to 4 turns per day. Understand what a turn actually is. 1 turn means 1 machine, used once, in 1 day. 2 turns is a functioning store. 4 turns is a very good one. Your whole revenue model is that one number, multiplied by your machine count, and you do not control it. Your neighborhood does. Density, rentals, and foot traffic decide your turns before you sign anything. The standard model is a 30-machine store, 20 washers, 10 dryers. That store generates $10,200 to $24,600 a month. Nationally, the average store earns about $150,000 a year. Small stores run $60,000 to $240,000 annually. Medium stores run $240,000 to $360,000. Large urban stores clear $360,000 to over $1 million. Layer 3 is where new owners get excited. Wash and fold. Customers drop off a bag. Your staff washes, dries, and folds it. You charge $1.25 to $3 per pound. A good program brings $5,000 to $15,000 a month. Here is where it gets interesting. Wash and fold margins run only 15 to 25%. Labor consumes 40 to 60% of that revenue. The layer that looks most like a real business pays the least like one. You are buying revenue with hours, and the hours are not yours. Layer 4 is quieter and much sweeter. Vending, detergent, softener, and dryer sheets cost you 21 to 25 cents per load. They sell at a markup of 100 to 200% over wholesale. Vending machines add $500 to $2,000 a month. That is the only product in the building with a clean margin. Layer 5 is borrowed outright. You take dry cleaning drop-offs for a nearby cleaner. You keep a commission of 20 to 40% on each order. You never touch a solvent. You are renting counter space to somebody else's business. Layer 6 is the one experienced operators chase. Commercial accounts, pickup and delivery, restaurants, gyms, short-term rentals. Built out fully, these services reach 35 to 40% of total revenue. Now look at who is actually paying for all of it. Renters make up 62% of visits. Evenings between 6 and 9 at night drive 40% of daily revenue. The average customer spends $4.75 per visit. $4.75. That is the unit of this entire business. Every large figure above is that small one, repeated until it becomes a living. You are not selling laundry. You are renting 30 minutes, $4.75 at a time. Now subtract what those 30 minutes cost you. In most retail, utilities are overhead. Here, utilities are inventory. Utilities consume 20 to 35% of gross revenue in a typical store. With modern high-efficiency machines, you can hold it near 15%. With older equipment, it climbs toward 40%. Look at what one cycle costs you. A standard 40-pound washer uses 25 to 40 gallons per cycle. Now the part that surprises new owners. You are billed for the water coming in. You are billed again for the wastewater going out. Read that again. The same gallon is charged to you twice. Once as supply, once as sewer. Multiply that by hundreds of cycles a day. Monthly utility bills land between $1,500 and $2,500. Larger stores pay $2,000 to $6,000 a month. Then rent. Rent should stay below 25% of gross revenue. Above 30%, profitability compresses fast. You do not control that ratio afterward. You control it once, at the table, before you know your real volume. Then labor, if you chose the wash and fold layer. Staffing runs $2,000 to $8,000 a month. An unattended store needs only 5 to 10 hours of attention weekly. That comparison is the real decision in this business. Every added service adds a person. Every person eats the margin that service created. Then maintenance, which never appears in the fantasy. Machines run continuously, in heat and humidity, loaded by strangers. Water is corrosive. Lint is flammable. Bearings fail on schedule. Budget also for the repairs you cannot schedule. A commercial washer runs several cycles a day, every day, for years. Bearings, seals, drain valves, and door locks are consumables here. A machine out of service is not only a repair bill, it is a machine earning nothing while its share of rent continues. Downtime is the cost that never appears in the projection. Then insurance, which is not ordinary retail insurance. You run a business full of water, gas, heat, and strangers. You are underwritten for flooding, for fire, and for injury on a wet floor. Then card processing, which takes a percentage of every single transaction. On a $4 wash, a small percentage is not small. Then cleaning, security, and property taxes. Now total the whole thing. Operating costs consume 65 to 80% of revenue. A small store with 10 to 15 machines spends $4,000 to $8,000 monthly. A 40-machine store with wash and fold pushes past $15,000 to $20,000. Set that against an average store earning $150,000 a year. The margin is real. It is also thin, and it is bought entirely with volume. Now notice who priced every line in that ledger. The water rate is set by a utility. The gas rate is set by a market. The rent is set by a landlord. The wage is set by a labor market. You set exactly one number in this entire building, the price on the machine. Utilities are not your bill. Utilities are your stock, and you resell them at a price your customers set, which leaves one lever, and pulling it barely moves anything. Pull the lever and watch what happens. Raise your wash price by 1/4. In a 40-washer store at 5 turns a day, that adds $1,500 a month, $18,000 a year. That sounds like a win. Now set it against a monthly cost base of $15,000 to $20,000. 1/4 on every wash in a large store moves the needle slightly, and your customers notice immediately, because your customers are, by definition, people counting quarters. 62% of them are renters. Their average visit is $4.75. The competitor, 4 blocks away, is 1 decision away. So the ceiling is not set by the market, it is set by your customer's wallet. There is another wall, and it is behind you. The store you bought was probably sold by an owner who was leaving. Laundromats are priced on multiples of cash flow, so a buyer pays for last year's numbers and inherits next year's rates. Water rates rise. Gas rates rise. Your vend price does not rise as easily. Every year, the gap between those two lines narrows. That is one wall. Here is the other one. Your machines are legally personal property. They are not fixtures. That sounds harmless. It is the most important sentence in your file. And here is the trap. It means the machines are not part of the building, even though they are bolted into it. They are installed, vented, and plumbed into a room you rent. Legally, they are portable collateral. Practically, they cannot move without destroying the store. That classification exists, so your lender can repossess cleanly. The 60-day removal window you signed in Section 2 now becomes real. Now consider your exit. You cannot relocate. The plumbing, drainage, venting, and permits stay behind. You cannot raise prices freely. Your customers are the reason the business exists at all. You cannot leave the lease early. Your lender required its length. You can only sell the store to the next person on the same terms. This is legal. This is normal. Nobody broke a rule to build this. Every clause was negotiated, printed, and signed. Now look at what is happening above your head. The United States held 17,461 laundromat businesses in 2026. That count has fallen roughly 1.5% a year since 2021. Stores are not simply closing, they are being replaced. In Fort Greene, Brooklyn, a laundromat called Wash Cycle 2 shut after more than a decade. Demolition permits followed. The plan for that corner is an 85-foot apartment tower with 50 units. In San Francisco, a Mission Street laundromat was demolished after years of lawsuits. An 8-story mixed-use building is approved for the site. Think about what that means at your lease renewal. The land under your machines is appreciating faster than your business is. Your landlord knows that number. You are the tenant standing on it. The machines are not your equipment. They are collateral, bolted to a floor you rent. None of this was an accident. It was designed this way in 1934. The first one opened on April 18, 1934, Fort Worth, Texas. A man named C.A. Tannehill. He called it a washateria, the name borrowed from cafeteria because the idea was identical. Cheap access to something you could not afford to own. Understand the year, 1934, the Great Depression. The electric washing machine had existed since 1908, but it reached only people with money and reliable electricity. Most households had neither. So Tannehill bought 4 electric washing machines. He put them in one room, and he charged people by the hour to use them. Here is where it gets interesting. He was not selling clean clothes. He was renting time on a machine. There were no dryers in that first store. Customers washed their load, then carried it home wet to a line, and there were no coins. An attendant stood on duty and worked the timer. The store was a staffed rental counter, not a self-service business. 2 inventions changed that. In 1937, the automatic washing machine arrived. By the late 1940s, the first unattended 24-hour stores opened. Notice what each invention removed. 1937 removed the person operating the machine. The late 1940s removed the person watching the door. Each step made the store cheaper to run and easier to own. Each step also made the owner less necessary to the room. Then came the piece that built the modern industry. Harry Greenwald founded Greenwald Industries in 1957. He is credited with the coin-operated laundry machine. That device removed the last employee from the room. No attendant, no timer, no wage, just a slot and a lock. Even the word came out of a company. George Edward Pendray worked at Westinghouse Electric Corporation. In the 1940s, he combined laundry and automat into laundromat. It was a trademark first. It went generic after White Consolidated Industries acquired it. Now hold the whole design in your hand. A business built during a depression, for people who could not buy a machine, priced by the hour, then by the coin, for customers with no alternative. 90 years later, the customer profile has not moved. 62% of visits still come from renters. Tannehill did not invent a business. He invented a way to rent machines to people who could not buy one. That is still the entire model, and it still sets your ceiling. 90 years later, one repair bill can still end it. Woodlawn is a neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. For 50 years, it had a laundromat called Laundry World. The owner was a man named Lloyd Hughes. The store had been open since Woodlawn was integrating as a community. It served thousands of residents. It outlasted every competitor that opened nearby. In 2010, Hughes did the responsible thing. He modernized. He took a small business administration loan of $625,000. The lender was First Choice Bank of Geneva, Illinois. He spent it on 155 new washers and dryers. That is the correct move in this industry. New machines cut utility costs and hold customers. Then something happened that had nothing to do with laundry. First Choice Bank went under. This was the Great Recession, and banks were failing everywhere. In 2011, Inland Bank bought its loans and deposits from the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Hughes's debt sat inside that portfolio. He now had a creditor he never chose, on terms he could not revisit. His business slumped. He fell behind on his monthly payments. He asked Inland Bank to renegotiate. At first, the bank expressed interest. Then the situation dragged. While it dragged, he fell further behind. A federal bankruptcy judge ordered the business liquidated. On Wednesday, September 27th, Laundry World ran its last load. 50 years ended in an afternoon. Now the figure that makes this an autopsy instead of a story. The repair bill at the center of it was $354. $354 against a $625,000 loan and 155 machines. Hughes also faced losing his house and his parents' house to foreclosure. He had personally guaranteed that loan, which is standard practice. Look carefully at what actually failed there. The laundry worked. Customers kept coming for 50 years. The machines were new. The location was proven. What failed was a financing relationship. 3 parties removed from Woodlawn: a bank in Geneva, Illinois, a federal regulator, a buyer of distressed loan portfolios. None of them ever stood inside that store. Now watch the same industry, in the same years, from above. Mac Gray was founded in 1927. It ran laundry rooms in apartment buildings and college dormitories. In 2012, it generated $322.1 million in sales. In 2013, it sold itself for about $524 million. The buyer was CSC Service Works. That buyer had been created months earlier by Pamplona Capital Management. Pamplona built it by acquiring CoinMax Services and AirServe for $1.4 billion. Today, CSC Service Works is the largest business in the United States laundromat industry. Set the two numbers beside each other. One owner lost his house over $354. In the same industry, in the same decade, $1.4 billion changed hands. Nobody cheated anybody. Scale simply decides whose phone call gets returned. Hughes did not fail at laundry. He failed to be large enough to be worth restructuring. So what did he actually own? For 50 years? Put every number from this video into one line. 25 to 40 gallons per wash cycle. Build on the way in, and build again on the way out. Utilities at 20 to 35% of everything you collect. Operating costs at 65 to 80% of revenue. A 10-year lease length chosen by your lender. Machines classified as personal property, so somebody else can remove them. A price ceiling set by customers spending $4.75 a visit, 1/4 more per wash, moving $1,500 a month. Now ask the only question that matters. What did you actually buy? You did not buy the machines. Your lender holds those. You did not buy the room. Your landlord holds that. You did not buy the customers. They live walking distance from your competitor. You did not buy the price. 1934 set the price. Look at the room again, with the numbers in place. The hum you liked is a meter running. The steam on the windows is money leaving as vapor. The warmth is gas you bought at a rate you never negotiated. Look at what is left. Water goes in, water gets heated, water goes out. Every quarter that drops is repayment for a gallon you already purchased. Your margin is the sliver between the rate you pay and the rate you can charge. That sliver is the entire business. And the land under it is worth more, and your landlord already knows. The quarters were never income, they were reimbursement for water you had already bought. So here is what you were looking at the whole time. You never bought a laundromat, you bought a water meter, installed in a room you do not own, and you signed a 10-year promise to keep paying for it.